As many of you know, I find it funny when the optics backfire for the MAGA right, but I find it funnier when the optics backfire and also it leads to some other kind of substantive loss. And that's exactly what happened with Donald Trump's hilarious SpaceX stunt with Elon Musk earlier this week. So I'll remind you about the whole thing. Earlier this week, Trump went down to Texas to see the launch of a SpaceX rocket with Elon Musk. And the optics were horrible because Trump looked like absolute crap. We looked at it, gaunt, some kind of self-tanner disaster. His lips looked white. He looked sickly. Everything about it just looked terrible. Okay, but what else? We've now learned that that stunt has actually cost Republicans the ability to have a better shot at blocking some judicial nominees from Joe Biden. Here's a Daily Beast article. Republican no-shows helped Democrats approve judicial nominees against Trump's wishes. Trump also helped Democrats by taking a few Republicans on a field trip to see the SpaceX rocket launch. So here's the deal. Republicans on Tuesday ripped J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and others for their absences from the Senate, which allowed Senate Democrats to ram through key Biden judicial nominees. Vance and Rubio, Donald Trump's choice for Secretary of State, weren't the only Republican senators missing, but they were singled out. Asked about the absences of several Republican senators who could have blocked Biden's judicial nominees, Senator John Kennedy, a Republican, fumed. I am not going to bubble wrap it. There's no excuse for that. It's our job to be here and vote. Another article from the International Business Times. Trump accidentally helps Dems get key judicial nominees approved by taking Republicans to SpaceX launch. If the Republican senators had been there, the article writes, they likely would have been able to defeat the judicial nominations. And then finally, Republicans are mad that Democrats are confirming lots of Biden's judges. So, whoop, I'm so sorry I punched my mic there. I haven't done it for a while, but I did it. And I'm sorry to the headphone viewers, listeners. There's a few stories here. It is not abundantly certain that Biden's nominees would have failed had Rubio and Vance alone been there. But it does seem to be the case that if Rubio, Vance, and the other missing Republicans had been there, it is a totally realistic possibility that they would have been able to block these nominees. But there's a broader story here, and I think it's a story that, as we think about what our activism is going to look like over the next 2 and 4 years, I say 2 and 4 because if 26 does not go well for Republicans, the second 2 years of Trump's term will be different. But for 2 and potentially for 4 years, as we start to think about what are the textures and contours of our activism and resistance going to be, one of the tools or strategies or approaches that we've talked about is when they hurt themselves, we just let them do it. As we talked about earlier this week, they've won the White House, House, and Senate. They should have a clear path to whatever they want. Well, now Trump nominates Matt Gaetz, and we immediately hear from Republicans that half of Senate Republicans don't plan to vote for the guy. We've done nothing. Trump has this clear path. He can nominate whoever he wants. If he only nominated sane and reasonable people, this wouldn't be happening. Hegseth now, the Trump transition team apparently didn't know that Hegseth had paid off a rape accuser. That was news to them once it became public after the nomination. This is self-inflicted stuff. And so one of the strategies, it's sort of like in medicine, there's this idea of do no harm. And sometimes my doctor likes to use the term a tincture of time. He didn't invent it. It's an old phrase, which basically means give it 2 weeks and disease will reveal itself. And if you're fine in 2 weeks, then we were better off standing aside and doing nothing. That's sort of the gist of it. In some cases, we will have to activate. If and when these mass deportation roundups or whatever you would call them start, we are going to have to activate. And Tom Homan is saying, we're going to start arresting people. We're going to force our way into blue cities and blue states. Okay, well, that's going to require action. That's not an instance where what we do best is achieved by standing aside. On the other hand, there are times when, listen, Do we even need to do anything here if half of Republicans are going to vote against a bunch of these guys? Do we even need to do anything if Trump's publicity stunts and the fact that these other senators want to be with Trump, that gets in the way of blocking Joe Biden's nominees, and Joe Biden gets a couple more judges confirmed? Fantastic. We'll stand aside and allow that. So the bigger takeaway here is, depending on what we're fighting against, sometimes you fight it by doing. And when people are as incompetent as these MAGA folks have shown themselves to be, sometimes you fight it by not doing. One other thing that I want to address before I talk about J.D. Vance's panic deletion of some tweets. I got an email from someone yesterday who said, David, you're doing a really good job of exposing the problems with a lot of these Trump nominees, but something you're doing that maybe is wrong, and this viewer said, she said, everybody's doing it, is everybody's acting like Trump is really making these decisions himself. We don't know that to be the case. It would be interesting to know who is spearheading this, because Trump has admitted before, during his first term, he'll pick judges from a Heritage Foundation list and he'll get advice about this other nominee from somewhere else. It's an absolutely brilliant question. Was it Trump's idea to nominate Gates AG? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Was it Trump's idea to make Linda McMahon the Secretary of Education, or Pete Hegseth Secretary of Defense? I can only assume Trump isn't coming up with every single one of these names out of thin air. He is the ultimate decider. But who is it that is setting up Trump's cabinet? And I don't mean it in a there's a hidden puppet master. It's always the case that presidents-elect have a team that helps them figure out these people. What would be interesting to know is who thought that Hegseth was a good idea and why. Is it just the idea of we like people from Fox News? Is there some deeper or hidden agenda? And that's hopefully an answer that at some point we will get. Well, I wrote a book after a long journey and a ton of work. I am really thrilled with how it turned out, and I hope you'll read it. The book is called The Echo Machine. And in a nutshell, it looks at how American politics got so broken, who has already figured out solutions, and how we can try to fix it and stop the terror of Trump for the next 4 years. With Trump winning this election, The Echo Machine couldn't be more relevant, not only a warning about how we got here, but also about what might be coming and how to prevent the worst outcomes. We've got to stay engaged. We need a plan, and that's what the book is about. There's a belief out there that unless you have corporate media behind you, you can't have a successful political book launch, that it's not possible. I think we can prove that wrong. Order The Echo Machine today at davidpakman.com/echo on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Kindle, anywhere that books, ebooks, and audiobooks are sold. You can also call any local bookstore and say, please order me The Echo Machine by David Pakman. Wherever you get the book, you'll get the free pre-order perks, including the signed book plate. Head to davidpakman.com/free book stuff after ordering.